Your reality just split, and nobody around you noticed. If the past few weeks have felt like you're living in a slightly different version of your life where everything looks the same but something fundamental has shifted, you're not losing it. You're experiencing what physicists call a timeline divergence. And it's not subtle, it's real. Right now, you're standing between two versions of your future, and most people collapse back into the old one simply because they don't understand what's happening. This video will show you the signs that confirm you're in an actual split, why it happened now, and most importantly, how to lock into the timeline that's calling you forward instead of getting pulled back into the familiar one that's already dying.
Pause for a moment and tune into what's happening right now, not through mental analysis, but through that inner knowing that's been quietly humming beneath your daily awareness for the past few weeks. Something is shifting that defies simple explanation, something you can't quite articulate to the people around you. But deep down, you sense it with unshakable certainty. Reality itself has transformed. Not slowly, not subtly. A foundational shift occurred, and you registered it. Perhaps it happened 3 weeks back, perhaps just yesterday, but there was that distinct instant when everything felt altered. Like passing through an imperceptible boundary into a parallel expression of your existence that appears nearly identical but functions according to entirely different principles. And here's what amplifies the confusion. Nobody else appears to have registered this change. Everyone continues moving through their routines as though nothing happened, while you're experiencing it like you've awakened inside a program running slightly modified code. This phenomenon isn't fabricated in your mind. This isn't about spiritual awakening or expanded consciousness or the usual interpretations people offer. What's unfolding within your experience is something physicists have contemplated theoretically for many decades, yet never possessed the measurement tools to verify. You've navigated past a branch point in the fabric of space-time itself. Your individual timeline has diverged from the shared collective timeline, and you're now inhabiting a reality strand that most people surrounding you simply aren't experiencing. I understand how implausible this sounds. I recognize your logical mind is already generating counter-arguments, seeking conventional frameworks, attempting to categorize this experience into something that makes rational sense. But that uncomfortable feeling you're carrying, that internal contradiction between what you're living through and what you believe should be possible, that's actually evidence that something authentic is taking place. Your consciousness is registering a transformation that your conditioned thinking doesn't have vocabulary to describe. The underlying physics of timeline divergence has been concealed in plain view for nearly 100 years. When Erwin Schrodinger formulated his wave equation back in 1926, he uncovered something that troubled him profoundly for his remaining years. The mathematical framework revealed that reality doesn't advance along a singular pathway. It continuously branches at every quantum occurrence, generating parallel expressions of history that exist concurrently across different probability spaces. Most physicists treated this as purely theoretical abstraction, a helpful computational tool, but not something describing actual physical existence. They misunderstood. Hugh Everett demonstrated in 1957 that these branches possess genuine reality, that every potential result of every quantum event produces an actual universe where that result manifests. The established scientific establishment dismissed his interpretation because accepting it would require acknowledging something too unusual, too destabilizing to integrate into their understanding of how things work. But Everett was articulating something that occurs not merely at the quantum scale, but at the level of consciousness itself. Your awareness continuously navigates through these probability branches, typically moving synchronized with the collective momentum of shared reality. Most individuals spend their complete lives flowing along the central current of the dominant timeline, never diverging sufficiently to notice the branching architecture underneath until something triggers a separation. What initiates a timeline divergence isn't arbitrary. It's not some universal lottery where certain individuals get randomly pulled into parallel realities by chance. The separation occurs when your consciousness reaches a critical density of unmanifested potential. When you've been carrying so many unrealized possibilities, so many unexpressed versions of who you are, so many choices you haven't made, that your energetic signature can no longer maintain coherence with the dominant timeline. Consider it like a flowing river. Most consciousness streams along the primary channel, following the path requiring least resistance, moving in collective synchronization with billions of other awareness currents. But when an individual consciousness builds sufficient momentum in a different direction, when it carries enough charge toward an alternative possibility, it achieves an escape velocity. The current can no longer contain it, and it separates into a tributary that exists parallel to the main flow. This transformation happened to you, and the timing wasn't random. You've been constructing toward this separation for years, possibly decades, through every decision you made that didn't quite synchronize with consensus reality. Every instance you felt that magnetic pull towards something different, something more, something that didn't fit the existence everyone expected you to occupy. Every moment you suppressed an authentic impulse to maintain social coherence. Every decision you made from fear instead of truth. All of that generated pressure, accumulated charge, constructed potential energy that couldn't remain contained indefinitely. The separation itself likely occurred during a moment of extreme clarity or extreme crisis. Something that compelled your consciousness to make a definitive determination about who you actually are versus who you've been performing as. Perhaps it was a relationship dissolving. Perhaps it was a health emergency. Perhaps it was nothing dramatic whatsoever, just a quiet moment in solitude when something inside you finally declared enough to a pattern you'd been perpetuating your entire existence. In that moment, your timeline branched. One expression of you continued along the pathway you'd been traveling, making the decisions that preserve continuity with your previous existence. But another expression, the one absorbing these words right now, made a different determination. Not necessarily a dramatic choice, not necessarily an obvious choice, but a choice that emerged from a deeper place, from authentic self instead of conditioned response. And that choice possessed sufficient gravitational pull to generate a new probability branch that you're now inhabiting. Here's what amplifies the disorientation. The separation isn't clean. You're not neatly divided into one timeline or the other. For a period of time, and this is the phase you're navigating right now, you exist in a superposition state. One presence in each timeline, consciousness straddling both probability branches, experiencing a hybrid reality that contains elements of both futures simultaneously. If this message is creating those aha moments for you, if something inside is saying, yes, this is what I've been experiencing, then I want to extend an invitation. Tap that like button if clarity just landed, because like attracts like. And subscribe, stay connected to this space, grow alongside us. This isn't just content consumption. This is frequency alignment. And if you felt something shift while watching, you're already tuned in. This explains the internal contradiction you've been carrying, why certain things feel simultaneously right and wrong. Why you observe your existence and sometimes see clearly what you're constructing toward, while other times you can't recall why anything holds significance. Why conversations with individuals you've known for years suddenly feel like you're communicating in incompatible languages. You're literally experiencing two different versions of reality overlapping, and your mind is struggling to integrate both simultaneously. The strangest element, the part that will make you question your stability if you're not careful, is how other individuals appear differently depending on which timeline lens you're perceiving through. Someone who felt like a soulmate yesterday feels like a stranger today. A career trajectory that seemed perfect last week suddenly feels completely misaligned. Activities that used to generate joy now feel hollow and meaningless. This isn't mood fluctuation. This isn't depression or confusion. You're experiencing the dissonance of two different probable futures attempting to establish dominance over your present moment experience. I need you to grasp something crucial about what's unfolding right now. In this exact phase of the separation, you haven't fully committed to either timeline yet. You're in what physicists would describe as a decoherence window, the brief interval after a quantum event, where multiple states exist simultaneously before one collapses into definitive reality. This window doesn't remain open indefinitely. Eventually, and this typically occurs within weeks of the initial separation, your consciousness will stabilize in one timeline or the other. The question becomes which one. Most individuals who experience a timeline separation end up collapsing back into the original trajectory. Not because that's superior or more genuine, but because the pull of habit, the momentum of established patterns, the comfort of familiar suffering is so powerful that it overcomes the gravitational pull of the new timeline. They register the split happening, experience those weeks or months of disorienting transition, and then gradually things return to what feels normal, except it's not really normal. It's resignation. It's selecting the known over the unknown, even when the known is destroying them. But you're different, or you wouldn't be here absorbing these words. Something in you recognized the title of this message because your subconscious already understands what's happening. Your deeper awareness is searching for confirmation, for language to articulate an experience that feels simultaneously profound and utterly isolating. You're seeking permission to trust what you're perceiving, instead of dismissing it as imagination or instability. So let me offer you that permission. What you're experiencing is genuine. The shift you register is actual. Reality did separate, and you're currently navigating the space between two different expressions of your future. In the comments section, share one word that captures the energy you're choosing to carry forward into this new timeline. Maybe it's alignment. Maybe it's ease. Maybe it's power. Maybe it's something uniquely yours. Let that word be a small but profound declaration, a signal, like a quantum seed you plant not just in this space, but in the quantum field itself. 7 years ago, I navigated this exact experience. For months, I felt like I was living in two worlds simultaneously. I'd be having a conversation with someone and experience two completely different emotional frequencies at the same time. I'd observe my apartment and see both a place I cherished and a prison I needed to escape from. Both perceptions equally true and equally false. I'd contemplate my future and see two completely divergent pathways with equal clarity, unable to determine which one was genuine and which was fantasy. The psychological strain was immense. I started questioning my mental stability. Was I dissociating? Was this the beginning of some kind of psychotic break? I went to a therapist who diagnosed me with anxiety and prescribed medication. I took the pills for 3 days before realizing they weren't addressing what was actually happening. This wasn't chemical imbalance. This was something far stranger. The breakthrough arrived when I stopped attempting to reconcile the two realities and instead started paying attention to how I felt in each one. One timeline, the one that represented continuation of my established existence, felt heavy. Not bad necessarily, just dense, obligatory, like walking through mud. Safe, predictable, and utterly suffocating. The other timeline, the one pulling me toward unknown territory, felt light but terrifying. Like standing at the edge of a cliff with winds strong enough to either push you over or hold you up, and you're uncertain which will happen. This timeline wasn't offering security or certainty. It was offering aliveness, authenticity, and the genuine possibility of becoming who I actually was instead of who I'd been trained to be. I made my choice not through logic or planning, but through a single impulsive action that I can only describe as letting go. I quit a job I'd held for 8 years, not because I had something superior lined up, not because it made financial sense, because every time I walked into that office, I felt myself dying a little more, and I suddenly couldn't tolerate one more day of that death. Within 48 hours of making that decision, everything transformed. Not externally at first. Externally, I was unemployed and terrified. But internally, something locked into place. The disorienting double vision resolved. The internal contradiction disappeared. I wasn't straddling two timelines anymore. I'd committed to one, and reality reorganized itself around that commitment with shocking speed. Opportunities manifested that hadn't existed the week before. Individuals I hadn't communicated with in years reached out with exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it. Situations that should have been catastrophic somehow worked out in ways I never could have predicted. It wasn't magic. It wasn't manifestation. It was timeline stabilization. I'd made a definitive choice about which probability branch I was occupying, and the universe stopped hedging its bets about what to show me. What I learned through that experience is that timeline splits aren't gentle invitations to gradual transformation. They're existential pressure points, where consciousness is forced to choose between authenticity and continuation, between genuine self and conditioned identity, between the existence you've been living and the existence that's been trying to live through you. The discomfort you're feeling right now isn't a problem requiring solution. It's information. Your consciousness is showing you with perfect clarity that you cannot remain where you've been. Let me describe the signs that confirm you're in an actual timeline separation rather than experiencing something else. Because there are specific markers, consistent phenomena that appear during these decoherence windows, and recognizing them will help you navigate this transition consciously instead of stumbling through it confused. First, time feels broken, not just moving fast or slow, but genuinely malfunctioning. You'll look at a clock and swear it displays one time, then look again moments later, and it's impossibly earlier or later than it should be. You'll have memories of events that other individuals swear never happened. You'll experience what feels like hours of activity, check your phone, and discover only 15 minutes have passed. This temporal distortion isn't psychological. You're experiencing the boundary between two different timeline structures that organize time slightly differently. Second, individuals close to you start feeling like strangers, while strangers sometimes feel intimately familiar. Your partner of 10 years suddenly seems like someone you barely know. Their mannerisms feel foreign. Their responses feel scripted. Meanwhile, you have a 3-minute conversation with a cashier and feel more seen, more understood than you have in months. This isn't about the relationships changing. It's about you perceiving individuals through different timeline lenses, where your relationships with them have followed different trajectories. Third, your tolerance for inauthenticity becomes zero. Conversations you used to navigate easily now feel unbearable. Social situations you used to enjoy now drain you instantly. Work responsibilities you used to handle competently now feel physically impossible to complete. This isn't burnout. This is your consciousness rejecting activities and interactions that exist in the timeline you're departing from. They literally don't fit your energetic signature anymore. Fourth, synchronicities spike dramatically. Numbers repeat. Songs contain eerily relevant messages. Conversations with strangers address exactly what you were just thinking about. Books fall off shelves, open to passages that speak directly to your situation. These aren't coincidences or your brain finding patterns. These are markers of timeline instability. When consciousness exists in superposition between two probable futures, the boundaries between inner and outer reality become permeable, and meaning bleeds across those boundaries in ways that seem impossible under normal physics. Fifth, you experience what I call flicker moments, brief instances where you see or feel or know something that contradicts consensus reality, then it's gone before you can fully grasp it. You see someone's face shift into a completely different expression for a split second. You hear music playing that isn't actually there. You smell something that has no source. You know something about a person you've never met before. These flickers are glimpses of the alternate timeline pressing through into your awareness, moments where the veil between probability branches becomes thin enough for information to leak across. Sixth, and this is the one that most individuals find most disturbing, you start having memories of events that haven't happened yet. Not vague premonitions or intuitive hunches, but detailed, specific memories complete with sensory information, emotional content, and contextual knowledge. You remember a conversation that occurs 3 days later. You remember the layout of a place you haven't visited yet. You remember information someone will tell you before they tell you. This isn't precognition in the mystical sense. You're accessing memories from the timeline. You're moving toward memories that already exist in that probability branch and are becoming available to your consciousness as you approach that reality. If you're experiencing several of these markers, you're not imagining things. You're not losing your mind. You're in an actual timeline separation, and your consciousness is navigating the transition between one expression of reality and another. Now, here's what most individuals don't understand about this process, and it's the most important piece. The split already happened. You're not deciding whether to jump timelines. You already jumped. What you're experiencing now is the integration phase, the period where your consciousness adjusts to operating in a different probability structure, and your physical reality catches up to match your new timeline position. This distinction is crucial because it means you're not trying to make something happen. You're allowing what's already happening to complete itself. The new timeline isn't something you need to reach. It's something you need to stop resisting. Every time you collapse back into old patterns, old relationships, old ways of being, you're not maintaining stability. You're creating drag against the natural momentum of your consciousness toward the reality it's already chosen. Consider it like being on a moving walkway at an airport. You've stepped onto the walkway that's moving toward your new timeline, but you keep turning around and trying to walk backward toward where you came from because the forward movement feels scary and unfamiliar. You're not actually going backward. You're just making the forward motion exhausting and disorienting. The walkway doesn't stop. It keeps moving you toward your destination. Whether you cooperate or resist, the only question is whether you arrive exhausted from fighting the movement or energized from flowing with it. The practical application of this understanding transforms everything. You're not trying to figure out which timeline to choose. That choice was already made at a level deeper than conscious decision. What you're doing now is learning to recognize which thoughts, actions, and choices align with your new timeline versus which ones are echoes of the old timeline trying to pull you back. Here's how you distinguish between them. Actions aligned with your new timeline feel right even when they're difficult. They might be terrifying. They might require courage you're not sure you possess. But there's a quality of rightness underneath the fear, like jumping off a cliff into water you can't see but somehow know is there. These actions create expansion in your chest even when they create chaos in your circumstances. Actions aligned with your old timeline feel heavy even when they're comfortable. They might be easy. They might be safe. They might be what everyone around you thinks you should do. But there's a quality of deadness underneath the security, like walking into a beautifully decorated prison cell and pretending you chose to be there. These actions create contraction in your chest, even when they create stability in your circumstances. Your body already knows which timeline you're in. Your mind gets confused by stories and shoulds and what-ifs. But your body, that deep somatic intelligence that exists below thought, knows with absolute certainty. When you're aligned with your new timeline, your body relaxes even in chaos. When you're forcing yourself back into your old timeline, your body tenses even in comfort. Pay attention to your breathing, not in meditation, but in daily life. Notice what makes your breath naturally deepen and what makes it shallow. Notice what allows your shoulders to drop and what makes them rise toward your ears. Notice what creates spaciousness in your belly and what creates clenching. Your breath is constantly giving you feedback about which timeline you're occupying in each moment. The individuals in your existence will also show you which timeline you're in through their responses to you. Individuals who belong to your old timeline will become increasingly uncomfortable around you during this transition. They'll accuse you of changing. They'll tell you you're not yourself. They'll express concern about your choices. They'll remind you of who you used to be and suggest you need to get back to that expression. Their discomfort isn't about you doing something wrong. It's about them sensing that you're no longer available for the role you played in their reality. Individuals who belong to your new timeline will appear with eerily perfect timing. You'll meet them through seemingly random circumstances. They'll say things that speak directly to what you're experiencing. They'll understand without you having to explain. They'll recognize you in a way that feels like reunion rather than introduction. Pay attention to these connections. They're not coincidences. They're confirmation that you're aligning with your new timeline, and the individuals who occupy that timeline are becoming visible to you. Physical locations will also shift in their energetic signature. Places you used to love will start feeling wrong. You'll walk into your favorite coffee shop, and it will feel like a set from a play you're no longer performing in. Your own home might start feeling like it belongs to someone else. Meanwhile, new places will call to you with inexplicable pull. You'll take a different route to work and feel like you're finally going in the right direction. You'll visit a neighborhood you've never been to and feel like you've come home. These aren't preferences changing. These are literal markers of which physical locations exist in which timeline structure. Your old timeline has certain geographical anchors, places where that expression of your existence was lived. Your new timeline has different anchors, and you're being drawn toward them even before you consciously understand where you're going. This is why so many individuals going through timeline splits feel compelled to move, to change locations, to leave cities or countries they've lived in for years. It's not wanderlust or escapism. It's consciousness recognizing that it needs to physically relocate to fully stabilize in the new timeline. The places that held your old reality have too much energetic momentum. Being in those locations keeps pulling you back into the patterns that belong to the timeline you're leaving. But here's where it gets complex. Not everyone going through a timeline separation needs to make dramatic external changes. Some individuals need to leave their marriages, quit their jobs, move across the country. Others need to stay exactly where they are while completely transforming their internal relationship with everything around them. The key is distinguishing between actions motivated by authentic alignment versus actions motivated by the urge to escape discomfort. Running away from your old timeline doesn't move you toward your new one. It just creates more chaos without creating actual transformation. But stepping deliberately toward what calls you, even when it makes no logical sense, even when everyone thinks you're crazy, that's what locks you into your new timeline, with enough gravitational force that you can't be pulled back. In the comments, drop one thing that you deeply desire to manifest right now. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's a happy relationship. Maybe it's a healthy and fit body. Maybe it's something uniquely yours. Let this be a small but profound declaration, a signal to the universe you send not just in this space, but in the quantum field itself. The commitment point is what most individuals miss. They experience the split. They feel the pull toward the new timeline. They start making changes, but they never fully commit. They keep one presence in each reality, maintaining backup plans, hedging their bets, leaving escape routes back to the familiar. And that divided commitment keeps them stuck in the decoherence window indefinitely. You cannot straddle two timelines permanently. Eventually, one will win. And if you don't make a conscious choice about which one, your unconscious patterns will make the choice for you, and they will always choose the familiar over the unknown. Your conditioning, your trauma responses, your survival mechanisms, all of them are designed to maintain continuity with the past. They will pull you back into your old timeline even when that timeline is destroying you, because at least it's a death they understand. This is why timeline splits so often fail to complete. Individuals feel the call. They know something needs to transform. They take tentative steps. But when the pressure intensifies, when the unknown becomes too uncomfortable, when everyone around them is telling them they're making a mistake, they collapse back. They decide they were confused, that it was just a phase, that they need to be more realistic. And they spend the rest of their lives wondering what would have happened if they'd been brave enough to follow that pull towards something different. Don't let that be you. The signs are clear. The call is undeniable. Your consciousness has already made the choice. Now, your conscious self needs to catch up and align with what's already in motion. This doesn't mean you need to know exactly what comes next, or have a perfect plan for your new existence. It means you need to stop resisting the death of your old existence long enough for your new existence to take form. There's a particular moment I want you to watch for in the coming days. You'll be doing something ordinary, something you've done 1,000 times before, and suddenly you'll feel absolutely certain that this is the last time you'll ever do this thing. Not sad about it, not grieving, just knowing with complete clarity that a chapter is closing. When that moment comes, don't analyze it, don't question it, don't try to hold on, just acknowledge it. This timeline is complete. I'm ready for what comes next. That acknowledgement, that simple internal yes to the transformation that's already occurring, is what allows the full transition to happen. What I'm sharing with you isn't theory. This is lived experience, documented patterns, physics that mainstream science isn't ready to acknowledge publicly, but that researchers in consciousness studies have been observing for decades. Timeline splits are genuine. The experience you're having is valid, and the choice you make right now will ripple through every remaining day of your existence. Choose consciously, choose courageously, choose the timeline that makes you feel alive, even if it makes everyone else uncomfortable. You didn't come here to live someone else's expression of your existence. You came here to occupy the timeline that expresses your authentic self. And that timeline is waiting for you to fully step into it. The split already happened. Now complete the transition. Make sure you share this video with your loved ones. You might be a blessing in disguise for them. For you, it may be just sharing. But for someone in need, it may mean they finally understand what they've been experiencing. Their gratitude will increase the positive energy flowing back to help you manifest everything you commented here today. If you watched until now, you're not here by accident. Like to anchor it, comment what clicked for you. Share this gift with one person who needs to hear it, and subscribe, because you're ready for what comes next.